All right, well, welcome everybody. We'll call the 6:30 meeting to order. Doug, welcome back. Looking forward to hearing your findings on the audit, and really the floor is yours at this point to take us through things. So I appreciate the years and years of service to the city. We have been in very good spots and are able to make strategic and sound financial decisions because we have you as a partner of the city. So appreciate all you do on behalf of the commission, and I'll turn it over to you at this point.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's good to be back. I don't think I've been at your meeting for the last couple of years. You always catch me when I'm going to Florida, but here I am this time. Thanks to Dan and his staff. They do a lot of work to put the audit together and get things ready for us. The audit did go very well. We are a little bit later than we have been in past years. Primarily because just working with getting the capital asset module of the city took a lot of work on Dan's part to get that all balanced and get everything recorded in the right spots. It's kind of a tricky thing to do, but I believe we got it all cleaned up, or he did, I should say. So we're all good to go. At the end of the day, we did wrap up the audit right at the end of November and issued our report. And at the bottom, I don't know if everyone has their books or if you're looking electronically. I'll refer to it, but I'll be going with the page numbers that are on the bottom of the page. So on page 1, which is the independent auditor's report, we give our opinion on the financial statements, and it's a good, clean opinion. It says, in our opinion, the statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city. So that's a good, clean report, what you hope to get when you have an audit done. And then just paging through the book, I'll just kind of mention the various sections, but pages 3 through 9 are the management's discussion and analysis. The best part of that is the financial highlights right on page 3. Some of the bigger things that happened during the year, there's a lot of significant road projects once again. So the projects being done on roads, and there was the purchase of an aerial ladder truck, which was pretty huge for the year too. And then moving through the report, pages 11 through 13, these are called the government-wide financial statements and shows all the activity. So if I can, I'm going to switch over to the slides at this point and just kind of walk you through slides to maybe there. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, it's working. So just these first couple slides here are on the government-wide, or all of the activity in the city, kind of all put together. And this is called a full accrual basis. So what that means is that it includes all of your capital assets along with all of the related debt, your pension liabilities, your OPEB liabilities, and all the big things like that. So it's on page 11, if you're following along in your book, it shows a deficit unrestricted net position of 4.4 million. That's actually a little bit better than it was last year. What's really driving that deficit, which is not uncommon to municipal governments at all, ever since we implemented the pension and OPEB recording of those liabilities. So it's not uncommon at all to have a deficit there, but your pension and OPEB liabilities overall are about 12.7 million. And so that drives the deficit of 4.4 million, which isn't bad when you look at the size of those other liabilities. And then on this page is just kind of a picture of what's really on page 12 and 13 of your report. And what it really is intended to do, it shows your expenses are the blue bar, and then the program or direct revenues are the green bars. And it just kind of shows you what is covered by program or direct revenues, which means the remainder is covered by your income, property taxes, and your income tax, property tax, and state shared revenues. So that's what this is kind of showing you here. The only unusual things are here under public works. It looks like they're fully funded. They're not. And the reason for that is because the expenditures aren't all included here in expenses but they're capitalized instead. And primarily that's the roads, where the program or direct revenues include the Act 51 funding along with any other road grants that are received from MDOT and what have you. So that's why that's there. And then culture and recreation, that's a lot of that is self-sustaining, and that's the Walker Ice and Fitness Center along with all the other parks activity that's in the city. So that's represents the little green bar there is the charges for services at Ice and Fitness primarily. Then the next one just shows overall where does all the revenue come from in the city, and you can see 49% of it is coming from income tax this year. Sorry, I have to look down at notes a little bit here. 12% is coming from charges for services, 8% is your state shared revenue, and only 6% right here is coming from your property taxes. So very small property tax amount. You definitely have the city income tax, and that's what really drives your revenue overall. The operating grants for the 14% is a lot of that is related to the Act 51 or street revenue, if I mentioned that. And then these next several slides are just related to your general fund. And if you look at pages, if you're following along on pages 12 through 15, that's where all your fund-based financial statements are. These are more what you're accustomed to seeing throughout the year, just one fund at a time. And I'll focus primarily on the general fund. And starting on page 16 with just the expenditure or the revenues and then the expenditures. So revenues, you can see the major categories in the general fund. Income taxes are down this year. That's a lot to do with COVID, with some of the income from the businesses in the city are down, along with we recorded an estimated refund due to people working at home outside of the city due to COVID. I'm not sure how that's all going to play out yet, but we recorded a adjustment for that, which Julie came up with us. And then you can see property taxes and state shared revenues are just steadily increasing. This other category where all the other revenue is almost identical to what it was last year. So overall looking good. And then general fund, this is just a breakdown of a couple of those revenues. So here's income tax. You can see it's since 2010, it's been trending upward. And then this year it took that little bit of a dip, and we'll see where that all plays out in the end. And then property tax is the next one. That one, you can see it's just been steadily increasing since 2014, and it's in good shape, but again, it doesn't represent a huge amount of the overall revenue for the general fund. And then just to look at comparison for the general fund expenditures, you can see judicial is holding almost identical to last year. General government is up slightly. The biggest thing that I could find that really drove that, there's a lot of things fluctuate up and down from year to year, but the biggest thing was the new IT department. There's an IT director that was hired, and a lot of computer equipment along with that. New computer equipment was purchased. Public safety is up primarily. There was additional 401A defined contribution pension plan contributions, and the bigger part of it was self-contained breathing apparatus purchases, which was about $400,000 for all those. And in other, you see this one jumps around quite a bit. This year there was a purchase of some property. There was a library roof put on, so an HVAC upgrade at the police building, parking lot paving. So that all drove the other category up quite a bit higher. And if you are looking at your book, you don't have to turn there, but on page 45, there's a detail of the revenues and expenditures compared to budget. In the general fund, there was only one very tiny over expenditure, and I'll get to that a little bit later when I go over a few footnotes. But the overall, the amended budget was to use about $1.5 million of fund balance, but the actual was a gain of about $270,000. So you finished well ahead of what was projected in in your amended budget for the year. And that leads to where our fund balance is. This is a picture or a graph of your total fund balance as a percentage of expenditures and transfers, which came in this year it's about 8.6 million or 46% of expenditures. The unassigned portion of that, which is the one you really look at more, is 37%, and that's at about 6.8 million. There is about $1 million set aside for the 2021 budget. Your policy, the city's policy, is to maintain unassigned fund balance of at least 15%. So 37% compared to 15%, you're well over that and in really good shape. And then besides that, just in the book, there's footnotes that supplement the financial statements. Just to point out a couple of them, note 5 on page 33, that's your capital asset footnote. And just to point out, you added about $7 million of new capital assets. Primarily, again, there was the fire trucks, and there's also the street construction was the biggest piece of that. And note 7 is debt. That's on page 38. There's about 1.4 million outstanding. Almost 1.2 million of that was the new fire truck installment purchase agreement that was taken out, the loan that was taken out to purchase that. And then the only other thing I was going to mention was the pension and OPEB. A lot of detail of those liabilities can be found on page 47 and 49. You did make progress on the pension liability. It's about 1.4 million less than it was last year. And every year for the last 5 years, the city has been contributing extra to that, which has helped. And, you know, this past fiscal year was a good investment increase. So that also made a big difference. The OPEB, the plan has been to just fund what is required by the state. So that liability grew just a little bit, about three or 400,000. But the required contribution that the state requires was made for the year. We issued a separate letter as well. I don't know if you have that in front of you, but it had 2 or 3 cleanup points. I don't even have it out in front of me, but things that are upcoming standards that Dan's going to work through and get cleaned up before our next audit. Other than that, I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Commissioners, I will turn the floor over to you first. Any comments, observations, questions for Doug?
Doug, this is Sarah. My only comment is, can you email that to me for our records so I have that?
Yeah, I certainly can. Yeah,
Thanks.
I'll do that.
You know, a couple of thoughts that jump out to me when I look at the numbers. And Doug, Daryl, Frank, and Dan, feel free to chime in as appropriate. When we look at some takeaways that I have, just from a historical perspective, one is income tax revenue, and I'm on page 8 of the packet, page 3 of the audit. But when I look at income tax equaling 66%, we definitely already had an impact on the pandemic. From a business leader's perspective, that 66%, while none of us on this call can change us with any vote or actions or what have you, that's the hand of cards that we have. That 66% scares the daylights out of me. And one of the things that we have to have extremely high awareness of is our exposure for the non-resident returns as we get to after the first of the year and what that's going to look like. We're going to have an impact. What that impact's going to be, we don't know yet. I believe, Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're going to have a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and something in between as kind of a plan.
Excuse me. Yes, Dan and Julie and Frank and I met last week, and we're working on a presentation we'll have for the commission in January. Probably at start at the finance committee meeting, kind of a 6-month check-in of where we are in the current fiscal year's budget. As you can see, in the year that just ended, we did take a little bit of hit of an income tax, and we expect that to continue throughout this year. We don't know the extent of that yet. There's some assistance that's being talked about at the state and federal level, so we'll see what kind of an impact that, if any, provides for us. We also have, as you know, a large amount of CARES Act funding that we've received that we can help supplement some of that payroll expenses through that. So we're continuing to monitor that. And yes, we are very concerned with the income tax. We'll likely come back with some mid-year budget adjustments on our current year budget. We have budgeted, I think, 12 million in our current budget for income tax. We're probably going to recommend that be decreased mid-year because we really feel we're going to have somewhat of an impact. So we're watching our pennies. I know we have a strong fund balance and we don't want to go there unless we absolutely have to, but that's what it is for. But we feel all the indications we're seeing on the economy, and I know a lot of you have seen the same projections. It looks very positive going forward, but we're going to take a little bit of a dip and a little bit of a hit, I think, but I think we're prepared for it. We prepared ourselves from the 2008-9 recession by making a lot of structural changes in a lot of our benefit systems and paying down our debt, which is paying dividends right now. That we don't have that extra $1 million a year we're paying in two big bond payments. So kudos to the commission for taking that strategy over the years. It's paying off for us right now. And as I said, we'll continue to monitor that, and we will have more of an update, more of a better picture for you in January. But again, thanks to Dan and Doug for all their work on this. And I think it just goes to show how conservative we've been on our budgeting when we were, again, projecting to use about little over $1 million in fund balance in this past year's budget, and we ended up with a surplus. So that's always a positive. So happy to answer any other questions. One other comment on the OPEB. I know we kind of went in the wrong direction there, but if you recall, we do have, we budgeted some more set aside money for OPEB, and in one of our union contracts, we actually got one more member onto our retiree health savings plan. So when that kicks in the next year's evaluations, that should be a little bit more positive for us, hopefully, as we go forward.
And then only other thing, just for discussion points for the commissioners, especially our new ones on, what Doug always does, and they bring the packet back to us, I always hone in on his discussion analysis, which is on page 8 and 9, from an audit perspective. That gives me, from a leadership perspective, the best summary of what I need to see and be aware of as it relates to the city itself. And that's where I'm pulling the income tax numbers from, our fund balance. When we look, our expenditures increased by 1.26%. Really not significant when you look at everything that is underneath that list with the elections, the SCBA equipment. There's a lot of investments we made this past year that were long overdue for some. And then you look at the general fund revenues exceeded expenditures. That's pretty outstanding too. So looking at all that, and then at page 9, the two things that jump out to me that are very significant, and this is not a tactical view, this is a strategic view for us as a city. When you look at the general fund paid in full, its last active bond is therefore bond debt free, as Daryl had just mentioned. That's huge. We don't have any big weight hanging over us that we have to worry about. DDA is in a good spot with their fund balance. So in and of itself, we are really in a fantastic spot to weather the things that we need to. And then that third bullet point underneath there, and Dan DeVries, I'm going to ask you on this one. I think the most recent number you had, we've actually jumped as a percentage of our funding. We are up to, I believe, is it 70% now of our funding? I see the head nod. Thank you. All right, Dan's on mute. So, guys, that's really, really significant, and that's not something. As Doug was talking about, that extra money that we put in, it's not something, as they've mentioned before, it's not going to make the front page of the of a newspaper or what have you, but it's the right thing to do for the city. the long-term health. I stand by just that being a priority for me as a leader at the city, and it seems to be consistent with all of us on the commission over time. And when others had to cut staffing during some of the COVID challenges and so forth, we were able to weather the things that we needed to because we put ourselves in a good spot. So I just hats off to all of the staff, Dan and Daryl and Frank, and it just doesn't come here. Frank's very big on the capital improvement plans and us looking 5 years out. So there's a lot of moving parts here. But when we have that focus to not taking on debt like we have in decades past and having it be a stranglehold on us, that's a big priority. And it didn't just start this year or last year. This has been going on for a number of years as of late. And again, it takes the commission driving that, making that a priority. So just hats off. Well done on that aspect. So I talked enough. I get excited about this, Doug, because I'm still worried about early 2021 of what the projections are going to look like. And I'm even more concerned about where we're going to be at in the summertime. We can't necessarily control that right now. I mean, we're going to have the hand of cards that we're going to be dealt, and that non-resident income piece is going to be an impact. And we have to put two hats on. We have to put the hat on as a city leader. We're still providing services to those buildings that might not have workers in them right now. They're working remote. We still provide police and fire protection for them. We're still doing the roads around there. That hasn't stopped. But if I put my employee hat on, I'm working remote. I shouldn't have to pay the city income tax either. So there's choices there. And I think we all have to be just cognizant of that there's no wrong decision somebody's going to make there. It is what it is, and we're going to find a way to work with it, but we put ourselves in a good spot. So commissioners, any comments, other feedback for Doug or Daryl, Dan or Frank? Anybody?
I'm just going to say thank you, Daryl, for the clarification on OPEB. I was glad that you chimed in there.
Nice job, Daryl and Doug as well. Very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, second, the budget looks great. We're financially, for the most part, financially sound. Gary, echoing your concerns about the income taxes going into next year, and this might be getting a little bit into the weeds, but I'm just curious, and again, maybe this will come up with more information in the future. But do you know how, if there's any kind of like monitoring mechanism, like how will we be in a position to keep tabs on the income taxes that are owed in Walker? And I mean, how will we know people were working at home or not, I guess is the question.
Great question. I see Daryl's left the screen. Frank, I can chime in if wanted, or do either you or Daryl want to handle? Or Dan?
Yeah, I could take a stab at that. I don't know what happened to the screen either. Right? Am I on now? Or can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Good enough.
Julie has a pretty good handle on, number of resident, non-residents in bulk. Obviously, we have to be careful about down to the employer level, but we'll continue to monitor that, and they'll know they'll be able to gauge that at least, or get a good sense of that on the returns that are starting, that will be filed after the first of the year. So it's, some of it will be an unknown until we get it till the end of the fiscal year, or to the end of the calendar year when they start filing their taxes. So as I said before, we're looking at kind of a worst case scenario, a middle scenario, and kind of a best case scenario. So we hope to have more solid numbers after the first of the year, after we get past our 6-month mark, and if we see if anything happens at the state and federal level. So I know that's a roundabout answer, but we're concerned with that same question that you have, Carol.
And Daryl, if I can just add a couple of points. Daryl said we met as a staff working group and threw a bunch of stuff on the whiteboard, and then we followed up with the Upjohn Institute to ask for some good data on employment, unemployment, and then working with your group behind the scenes here to get some better understanding for you folks about the type of work categories in the city. What we're trying to do is come up with some assumptions that are based in the best available data. And then we can do the scenario planning for maybe 2 or 3 scenarios of the budget. So that's going on, and I hope I'll have that stuff for you in January, so we can start getting together as a group and getting all this information out on the whiteboard and do some budget scenario planning.
What about property taxes? I know there's been some concern too for those who aren't making, especially maybe some of our smaller businesses that haven't been open, what the expectations are for property taxes. There's a possibility for an extension. Some people have been asking about that. So again, it might be too much in the weeds for today's conversation, but just to get it out there a little bit.
No, it's a fair, great question.
There's not been at the state level any exception made for property tax delay or anything. That's going to be a state decision. And that was talked about early on. And the decision was made to still require property taxes to be paid. So we're working under those assumptions unless something happens at the state level. I don't know, Steve, maybe you have anything to add on that. I don't think there's any talk of that in the last few days of session in Lansing right now.
Right.
I wouldn't expect anything before the end of the year. Going into next year, the whispers still happen just because it's something that a lot of our business owners are struggling with, especially those who have been precluded from being able to operate by the orders that we're operating under. So what I would say is that I wouldn't expect anything by the end of the year, but it could be a discussion that's revisited next year.
Okay, thanks.
No, and this is, I don't think those are in the weak questions. Those are great questions because this is what we've planned for however many years now. And we're, when you start thinking of the worst case scenario, what could go wrong, and we plan for it, we put ourselves in a good spot just by thinking of all the what ifs. And I just encourage all of us to keep thinking of that as we get into the budget looks in mid to late January, that we have just those long-term outlooks of what's the right thing to do with any decisions we have to make. So we'll get there soon enough. But anything else from the group for Doug?
No, but I do just like to shout out again to thank Doug, and especially for Dan DeVries for all the tireless work he does behind the scenes, and doesn't like to take credit for any of it, but a lot of this is because of Dan's diligent hard work and attention to detail, as you all know. So thanks, Dan.
There you go. All right. Well, appreciate Doug again. Appreciate the relationship we've had with you for so long and helping keep the city in the right direction, along with our staff. Dan, I continue to be in awe of all the things you do. So thank you, and never lacking for some background on the numbers and that strategy of where we need to go. So you two are welcome to stick around for a thoroughly engaging 7 o'clock commission meeting, or you can drop off now. Leave it up to you. There's really no action on this. Just we have to approve the bills, and we've got some discussion items. So welcome to join us, or drop off if you want. So otherwise, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Doug. Dan, I'll see you soon enough anyway.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. All right. I'm watching that clock at 7 almost.
6:59. You're good when you are. I'm good when you are.
Okay. And Jason, did I just message you? Anybody in the waiting room?
No.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. It is 7 o'clock. I don't have the gavel, so we'll call the meeting to order with the pen here. And welcome to another Zoom meeting. Well, it sounds like we'll have these for a little while yet. What I'd like to do is have Commissioner Gilbert, invite him to do the invocation. And then what we'll do for Pledge of Allegiance, just around the cameras, will be awkward. Jason's actually going to put a flag up in the background. You can actually stop your camera because we're all going to be standing up in front of the camera, so we all don't have our midsections in front of the camera. Let's pause the camera views. We'll stand up for Pledge of Allegiance, do our Pledge of Allegiance with the mics on, and then come back and turn the cameras back on. Is that fair?
Yep.
Cool. All right, Commissioner Gilbert, I invite you to do the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather today to work on behalf of the people of our city. We ask for your guidance to help us serve those who are here to represent, who we are here to represent, and we ask that you care for those who are ill and those who are struggling to get through these difficult times. And Lord, we ask you to protect those who have put so much at risk to protect all of us. And we thank you for all that you do to allow us to be here and serve our community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And then I'll invite all of you, you're welcome to stop your video and stand, and we'll stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll go ahead and lead us in that then. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jason Rotman, thank you. Well done. Thank you, commissioners. Nice and smooth. If I could please ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Carey,
Present.
Commissioner Rapp,
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Present.
Commissioner Glanville,
Present.
Commissioner Groders,
Present.
Commissioner Chase,
Present.
Commissioner DeShane.
Present.
Few new names there for me.
We'll get in the rhythm here soon enough.
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the November 23rd, 2020 City Commission meeting. Is there any discussion on those? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support.
I'll make the motion, Commissioner Rapp.
Okay, I heard Commissioner Rapp and then Commissioner Chase. All right, any other discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye by aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, the minutes are passed. Jason Rotman, I'll ask you one more time if there's any public, probably I'll ask you one more as we get to the end here. Anybody out in the waiting room there for public comment?
Not as of right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the list is consent agenda. Expenditures in the amount of $642,772.52. Any discussion or questions on those? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval and support.
I'll make that motion.
Motion.
Support.
Support.
I heard DeShane, I heard Gilbert, second, I believe.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You can pay the bills. We're good. Thank you. We'll jump to Commissioner and City Manager comments. When we get done with those, Jason, I'll check one more time for the waiting room, just to, if anybody has made the time to come on, I want to make sure to give them time. So we'll come back to that in a second. But I'll open up. Let's start as I'm looking on my screen here. We'll do the Brady Bunch thing here. Commissioner DeShane, you are in my upper left, and I'm going to go this way from you to our clerk, Commissioner Glanville, and we'll work our next roll in.
All right, my only comment is I thought the Jingle Bell Lane was a huge success. I had multiple residents tell me that they enjoyed it so much. I love the happy faces and the smiles. And although my feet were cold, and I'm sure Commissioner Glanville's were too, handing out all the glasses, it was a lot of fun camaraderie. And I just think that that was a great way for us to even push through this pandemic and still have the same kind of a festival that Walker is known for. So kudos to all those who organized it. Great event, and very proud to be a part of it.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Nothing.
Okay, welcome back. Commissioner Glanville.
Yeah, I got a little list here. Not necessarily in order of importance. I happened to stop in Whitvick this morning to drop off a toy for the tots right there on the last day today, and it was just fantastic. Just want to thank the community and everyone for the support. A lot of that, I think, did come in during Jingle Bell Lane, so it's just fantastic to see how much was donated in the toys. And as I was talking to Mary Kay and some of the people there, some of the folks, they're open for business and they're excited to have people coming back. The center is clean. I've been in there a few times myself to work out. I know I've seen a couple city people in there. But if we can just, make sure people know that it's time to maybe be thinking about the COVID-19, if you know what I mean, and how you want to start the new year off right. So they're going to have some of their weight challenges and things back in place. So maybe we can do a little community building around that. So please come back, WIFIC members. Legislative update. I happened to attend the Chamber of Commerce legislative update. I think that was last week on Monday morning. Legislative breakfast. A lot of talk around COVID and tax relief and business and everything that Steve was saying is going to be discussed here towards the end of the year, early next year. Some other things that I thought were of interest to note, of course, we're going to be having a special election coming up here in our area next year, as Senator McGregor's seat is vacated due to him moving into the county treasury. So that's something that I think will be interesting to keep our eye on. And then there were some comments made at a couple different levels about the need for broadband service, and that's something that's being worked on at the federal as well as the state level, I believe. And I think, again, that's something that we need to be keeping our eye on here in Walker, because I know for some of our schools, we do have some fairly rural areas. And even when we're not out in those rural areas, I mean, right here on Wilson, down the street from me, I've got neighbors who don't have broadband access because of the way that the infrastructure was designed years ago. And so when we think about access to city services and even access to these meetings, I think we need to keep in mind that there are issues that just need to be on our radar, right? So it was a great update. Always nice at the end of the year there. Trails, the paving of the Pioneer Trail, I believe, is complete, so that there is now a connection for the Muscatau Pioneer Trail that gets us almost to the White Pine, close enough, I would say, that it counts. So excited that that's been going on, and I think that hopefully will put us in a little bit better position, as I'm sure we'll be looking for a build grant again soon, perhaps this year or next year. So the more we can work on those connections and keep the community involved in those, the better. I just want to say, I know it's coming in close, but there's a small business, $10 million in CARES Act relief money was released to the MML that our small businesses have access to. It's a first come, first come, first serve type grant opportunity that opens tomorrow, December 15th. So if there are any small business owners out there, please have a look. For MEDC is helping to run that. So if you just look for that grant, do a little Google search, it'll show you what business opportunities or what business categories are included in that, primarily restaurants and those kinds of things. And then also examples of the grants, so you can get your paperwork together here and get ready to submit that in the next day or so. I just want to say congratulations to Sergeant Joel Bartels. I believe he was awarded, was it Police Officer of the Year? So sad that we had to miss the banquet and everything, but great that they're still able to. I mean, they've just done fabulous work this year in our police department, as always. And Joel is a neighbor of mine, so nice to give him a little shout out. As well as others. I know there's been some promotions and whatnot within the department as well recently. And then, yeah, just an echo to Jingle Bell Lane. What a fantastic event it was. So, and then the last thing I wanted to bring up was something that I had emailed everybody, and I don't know if you want to hold this for a little bit later or not, but I just wanted to review as a discussion item.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the committee appointments. I know that's coming up here in January. I've had some people, when I was campaigning and since, who expressed interest in being more involved in the city, and they want to understand what their opportunities are for committees, how they know when there's an opening, when they can apply, where they apply, all that good stuff. So I thought if we could review that here in this meeting, it would be on the record, and we'd be able to share that information. We'd kind of level set, so we're all giving the same information and understanding of what people can be looking for and thinking about I saw on the website that some of the committees have an apply button on them and some don't. So I wasn't sure if that meant that some committees have openings and some don't, or are we always, accepting applications, or what does that look like? I know in our committee roster, there are some on the tenure on the different committees, the Planning Commission being one, where there are some people whose terms are coming to an end that of course could be renewed, but then are there openings? Is there a way for people to express interest in those things? So if we can just, you said, just kind of go over that stuff here, I think that would be very helpful.
Sure. I'll throw some 2 cents in. I'm going to encourage the group to jump in with thoughts, and particularly the ones that went through. We went through some significant change, a year and a half ago, I think, with how we approach like the Planning Commission and ZBA appointments and so forth. But where I believe when we've had committee openings, Kendra used to do a really good job in that role of putting something out on social media and letting people know that we have this opening on this group. Kendra left obviously in the midst of COVID. That spot eventually got backfilled. And I think one of the things with Nicole is we could probably on the go forward here, she's got her feet underneath her and learning the job and everything, is get on a cadence of advertising not only all committee appointments, but maybe once a month spotlighting a committee to build a bench. Because if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna ask our clerk, I don't think we have a single application sitting in your office for any committee right now.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We keep them 1 year, but we don't have anybody pending, no.
Okay, so in that topic, commissioners, I'm going to highly encourage you that bench. I don't necessarily like the reactionary of jumping in to fill a spot. It's nice to have somebody that's indicated that interest, and maybe we know a little bit of a background in advance. So that's going to be one thing, and maybe we take every month that we spotlight a committee and what that committee does, what the requirements of it are, and just start to build a bench from it. So when we do have the openings, we can ask our clerk, okay, we had a resignation, let's say with 2 people, that we can go to them, go to that list and say, okay, we have 2 people for that committee sitting on the resumes or applications already, and then we can take those and look at those as a commission. The process itself hasn't changed since 1962, and it's not something that I made the rule or a previous mayor. It's a city charter. When we appoint committees, they're mayor appointments, and then the commission approves them or doesn't approve them. And that's the process. To change that would require obviously a referendum or change of significance to the city charter. And I don't think we're heading down that road, but I think what I'm gathering is, how do we get more people included, get applications for the committees? The process will still be what it is. And then, we're obviously, we have some people, you spotlighted planning. There's actually one expiration this month, and or next month. It's indicating 2, but there's a typo in there. There's only one expiration in there. I have spoke with that candidate, and I'm in process of confirming with the others on the other committees, do they want to continue to serve or not? Particularly some of the building appeals one. I don't have my list right in front of me. There are some of them that require some extensive knowledge of that subject matter, and having that tenure on there is pretty significant. So as I'll go through those, we'll have those at the first meeting in January for approval, as well as all of our committee assignments for the new year. And we'll ask the commission to approve it or not approve it at that point. But I think we'll be in a good spot for that. But we definitely can, with Nicole here now in that role, getting comfortable, I think we can do a better job, or more active job, I should say, of promoting the committees and the openings on them. But I would throw this out to the commissioners too. If you know of anybody, have them get the application in, and have them get it in now. Even if there's not something open, get the application in so we have the bench there ready to go.
May I say something, Mayor? The application's right online. People can submit it any day and every day, and they come directly to the clerk's office.
Okay.
So if we get them, we will put them in the file, but I haven't had any in 2020, so.
So just to clarify, like I'm looking at it right now, right? And like you said, some of them have an apply, like the Zoning Board of Appeals has an apply button on it, as does Planning Commission. Finance Committee does not. Parks and Rec does not.
See, finance would not, because that's not a public committee. And initially Parks and Rec was reassembled after
Yeah.
Daryl and Frank remind me of that hiatus. We're probably due to have some more discussion around that again, but it had sat stagnant for a number of years. We resurrected it as we were looking at renewing our lease with the school district for City Central Park specifically. And there was a lot of, so you'll see a lot of Kennewa Hills people at the table and a lot of city people, and not much else. And I think some residents we had started with on there. So that could be one as future plans as we get into the start of this year. That could evolve potentially a little bit. But there are going to be ones that obviously we're not going to have residents be, they're statutory to the city, not open to them.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm wondering is if I were a resident and I wanted to know, or I thought, well, that emergency planning committee, that sounds kind of interesting. How would I know exactly what that does, or if there was an opportunity for me, or because I'm not seeing that on the website at all.
I think that's a good, it's probably a good, Nicole, Daryl and Frank, correct me if I steer too far outside the lanes with this on her responsibilities, but I think that's one with we can take, the commission will have the elected officials handbook in early January. I believe we'll have it at the first meeting for your review, and I'm sure there's going to be some discussion points around that. The different committees are being updated, and Sarah had some changes with a lot of the election changes. She shared some changes with us today that have to go into that draft version. And then the commission will get a proof of that in January, and then we'll adopt it. Those committee descriptions can go on the website then, how often they meet, and that's in the handbook now. So how often they meet, what all it involves, who should be in, if you're interested in applying for it, do I fit this mold or not? It sounds like a cool one, but is it the right thing for me to be on? So we're definitely, that'll be I think a big help. And we're probably, I would say 30 days out on that, maybe 45 tops, and we should have a better solution to it.
All right.
Mayor Carey, though, may I speak up again? Like emergency planning committee, that's all internal, other than one person. So a lot of these committees are not external, they're internal.
Well,
no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to mention, but that's, I think where Commissioner Glanville is going is having a description of the committee on there so that they know that. We've always traditionally, a perfect example of that is that emergency management planning has been all city staff, but there's always been one resident. But that resident, it used to be Jack Stewart years ago, for those that remember that name. I see Commissioner Groder shaking her head. So Jack held that when he was with the Kent County. We had Art Tannis in there for a while when he was with Kent County as a command staff, and then EJ Johnson there as command staff now for the county. So we've always had that county liaison in there because we've needed that interface. And that committee meets every time a new mayor takes office. So that description should be on that. But I think with really with COVID, with what 2020 has given us, it's probably not, I think, a bad thing for us to take a look at this year, probably that group meeting again. But another thing I was thinking of when you were talking about that committee, again, some of those that have been around for all will remember, we had our former chiefs came in, was this about 4 or 5 years ago? Guys for Daryl and Frank, that they came in and did the role playing. We did some active shooter scenarios and stuff. So they did some board games. There was quite an elaborate setup in the commission chambers. And it was great for us to see if there's an active shooter in a certain large retail store, if there's a F5 tornado that comes through again, or we get straight line winds again, like 1998. That's probably not a bad thing as we get after the first of the year. Probably not a bad thing to take a look at that again. And for the bigger group, it made me think of that. But I think where you're going to is let's make sure with these committees, we have the committee description, what the commitment's going to be to them. Because it's no good if we appoint them and they don't show up to the meeting. So that if we have those things up there, make it easy for them to make a decision. Should I apply or not apply? And have that button active that they can do it, have a fillable PDF, online. That'd be the ideal situation. Because I don't think, are we set up for fillable PDF right now?
No.
It's a fill-inable form for this
Okay.
scenario.
So we might be able to do something like that, but I see where you're going. I think that's for the different committees. We, in the city websites and the bullseye too, but I think we have to prioritize budgets, our monies in the coming years. And I see Daryl grimacing a little bit. I won't say we have to do it, but I'm not a big fan of our current website design. It's just not, to me, it's not very user intuitive for our residents. Just my personal 2 cents, but I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but we can definitely make it better for committee appointments.
Right, I appreciate that. And I think one other thing to include would be who sits on those committees. Is it just city staff or is it open to the public?
Yes, and the descriptions in the new handbook too of that makeup, so that'll be good. We'll basically just be able to cut and paste that stuff onto that section of the website then.
Sure. All right, no, I appreciate it.
Is it possible to divide it into 2 different sections? These are public options and these are all staffed by internal. So it's obvious.
Yeah, I don't know why not. Yeah. Yeah, like
it just makes
finance
sense.
would be a perfect one. Finance or personnel, something like that would be obvious that we'd want to have over here. You're aware they're there, so if they see the committee, they're not looking for it someplace where it doesn't exist. We're just saying this is staffed by city staff and elected officials only.
Yeah, just to differentiate.
Okay. I saw Frank making a ton of notes. I know he's going to talk to Nicole in the morning about it. So.
Well, this is actually an iCompass part, so we'll take care of that in the clerk's office.
Okay.
That falls under our department.
And then I'd like to see us do the social media piece because I think we have, gang, this has been just one of the most bizarre years I think we can all chalk up to our years on this planet, and of all the things that have gone on and we never expected. It's been an unusual year, and I think we're, as we start to level off things here, we've got some tough winter months to get through, but we'll be on a better side of this in 2021. We can start to get some of these things, some of the housekeeping in order a little bit better. So.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep. So all good on your stuff then? Covered the committees? Before I leave that, any other question on the committees for the group? Going around? All right, so I'm doing my Brady Bunch thing. Commissioner Gilbert, you're next, and then Commissioner Chase.
Perfect. For my part, first update, big one, the rapid CEO search. We have moved to pursue a contract with a candidate. Her name is Deb Prado. She most recently worked at MTA in New York. And prior to that worked for the state of New Jersey's transit system. But her background prior to that was Rochester, New York, which is a similar system to what we have at the Rapid in some ways. I think there are some substantial differences as well, but she's in the interview, she was an absolute rock star. And I think that she will bring a really great energy to the Rapid. And I think that it'll be very interesting seeing how she approaches the role. And but we came to a unanimous decision on the Rapid board. So more to come on that. More information as it becomes available. And once Deb does step into the role, I think I'd probably like to have her in just to meet and greet and have the conversation with everyone. Other Rapid stuff. So the mayor, Frank, myself, I'm sure others at City Hall have been in some pretty constant conversations around the preferred service alternative. So the Rapid has had some public meetings on this, and it is essentially their plan out of the comprehensive operational analysis that we've gone through over the last year to change the service model at the Rapid. What they ended up landing on was pretty, might it was, the changes are not overwhelming in any sense. Service looks similar in a lot of ways, but for us, we're getting a very different offering for the northwest part of our city, the 3 mile, 4 mile corridor, and City Hall as well, which they are proposing to offer on-demand service, which is a little bit complicated in the way that it'll roll out. And I have some questions, concerns, and I've been, probably more than anyone, I've been barking up our staff at the Rapid on this one. And I've been in some pretty constant contact with the planning department over there, but more to come on that as it starts to take shape and sort of solidify. We've been in conversations with business owners across the area, school districts, things like that, kind of engaging and making sure that we're having an open and honest back and forth about what service should look like and how this can evolve moving forward. So again, more to come. If people want more information on either of those two items, I'm more than happy to offer feedback or more information as needed. Lansing update. So a couple of items of just high interest to this commission. The aggregate stuff that we've talked about quite a bit, Senate Bill 431 does not appear to have sufficient time or support to move through the process. And my expectation is that will not pass this year. It may be revisited next year, but I think that the stakeholders who got involved on this issue have spent a lot of their political capital this year, and I don't know that they can come back and do it again successfully. I think this probably was their best shot at that. Property tax deferrals. So that is something, delinquent property tax is something that was talked about quite a bit, and legislation was passed and vetoed by the governor. That's coming back around, and I think we'll be able to get that done. So I'm not 100% sure how that will directly affect us, but just something to put out there, maybe sort of for some further discussion with folks on staff. And then the other thing is the Open Meetings Act. My expectation is we will get the extension through March 31st for virtual meetings. So that is my expectation. And I think that is all of the stuff that I wanted to update you guys on.
Good list. Thank you. Commissioner Chase?
For community engagement for December, similar to what we did for October, the fall time, is that we did the scarecrows. So on Wednesday, the wreath decorating that businesses around the Standale area did. And then we start our competition on Facebook then through the 23rd. So invite all you guys to share that post that Nicole did today, just to try to gain the community to make sure that they vote on these, and then make sure you guys all stop by and see them.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
One quick item. We're starting to build a request for qualifications, an RFQ for the DDA when it comes to the topic of streetlights. So I think we'll run that past DDA tomorrow morning at the meeting. And the request is going to be to let us build the RFQ and then work into a proposal, as opposed to getting into detailed proposals with multiple firms. Let's see who's qualified first, what kind of team they can put together with the appropriate qualifications. We did that for the Four Corners project, and it worked very well. And that was, I think, 2007. So we'll use the same kind of model, but I prefer to do an RFQ in this case because it's going to take a significant amount of planning work up front with the DDA on all of the scope and design and goals and objectives and all that. But then the team also needs to be technically competent enough to help that group and you folks as well choose the type of lighting and everything in the streetscape essentially for the next 20 years. So we will work on the RFQ, and I will keep you folks involved with the draft. And if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to give me a holler and we'll get your questions answered. So expect that here around the first of the year.
Frank, is
Thank you.
that a Zoom meeting tomorrow?
Yes, yes, everything is Zoom for the rest of the year. And then Steve knows more than I do about, is Zoom going to be an alternative or a requirement after the first of the year? We heard something about that on MML's update this morning, but I think Steve is the one who knows more than I do.
But as far as like sitting in tomorrow morning,
That is a Zoom meeting. If you go to iCompass or if you go to the city's website,
Okay.
Jessica put that agenda together, and right at the top there is the link to the Zoom meeting
okay, perfect.
for
Thank you.
DDA tomorrow.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Daryl?
Yes, a few things, and that DDA meeting is at 7:30 at usual time, but it is via Zoom, Melanie. Couple things, we were notified late last week that we received our formal approval for the TAP grant for the Kinney Trail that we've been planning for a while. We got our formal approval from MDOT, and total project amounts about $440,000, and the grant is about 300 of that. So thanks to Travis and Scott and the commission for working on that for the past year and a half, so that we at least got our approval to that. And the bid for the actual road construction at Kinney is out right now. I think that's due, I think maybe later this month yet. So both of those projects should be a go for next spring/summer construction on Kinney from Waldorf to 3 Mile. So good news there. Still getting our money from MDOT. We already talked about the budget a little bit during the audit presentation, so I won't go over that too much. And probably the most exciting thing, well, maybe not as exciting as it usually is, but usually about this time of year, we have a nice luncheon and recognize our employees over at the Ice and Fitness Center, but obviously due to COVID, that won't be happening this year. So in lieu of that, on Thursday afternoon between 2 and 3:30, we're going to be having a distribution of our appreciation for the employees in the commission chambers. So if any of you are around or would like to stop by and say hi, we're going to kind of usher certain departments in sometime between those hours to provide them their recognition and thanks for the year. So unfortunately, it's not as cozy and comfy as we like to do over at the Ice and Fitness Center, but we still would like to show our appreciation to our wonderful staff. So that's happening this Thursday between 2 and 3:30, commission chambers. If you can make it, please join us. We think we have enough room. We can social distance and not exceed any limits of anything and get busted by the cops for anything for, whatever. So anyways, that's what we're going to do. So this Thursday. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Daryl. Commissioner Groders, you're next on the list, and then we'll wrap up Commissioner Rapp there.
Nothing more from me. Thank you. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Wear your masks. Wash your hands.
Yes. Commissioner Rapp, by the way, thank you for taking time away from your training. I know you're in the middle of a session tonight.
Oh,
so.
that's okay. Yeah, they're sitting there waving at me, and I'm going, I'm always late, so just be patient with me. Just kind of echoing on Commissioner Glanville, I'd like to congratulate Sergeant Bartels with Officer of the Year with the Police Department here in 2020 in a tough year of COVID. I work very closely with him and his crew as he works the same night shift as I do. So I just saw him over the weekend a couple of times as well and congratulated him there. So want to congratulate him. I also want to congratulate Officer Andrew Ringling with the life-saving award. He assisted in a cardiac arrest and it had a positive outcome. And as we know, those unfortunately don't always work out that way. And that's unfortunate, but his was a positive outcome. And a lot of that probably had to do with him as well. So that's a quick response by him, along with all of our first responders in the area too. And then also to wrap it up with Officer Beal, Luke Beal, who absolutely, he works the opposite night shift as me, but I see him frequently as well. I want to congratulate him on the department commendation with taking into custody a CCW suspect off of a basic traffic stop. And that's why police do what they do, and that's to protect us. So hats off to all of those three. And then also thanks to everybody that helped with Jingle Bell Lane. That sounded like it was a great time. And unfortunately I had to work, so I couldn't come and have fun, but I was with you in spirit at least. And that's all I have.
You might have been the warmest one that night. Assuming you're in the ambulance, I don't know. So
exactly.
That's all good. No, thank you. I'll bring us home here. Jason, I'm going to double check real quick. Is there anybody else in the waiting room here?
Nope.
Super. All right, I'll bring us home quickly. Here's a few things. Jingle Bell Lane, just absolutely awesome. I want to, while they're on here, I want to thank Daryl and Frank specifically, because they threw a lot of weight and support behind making this happen, and really helped Nicole with the department heads get this structure. But nobody grumbled. Everybody said, you know what, this is the right thing to do. And I think we can all acknowledge, yeah, our toes were cold a bit. So lesson learned for next year, maybe some toe warmers or something from Ace would be nice. But I put in the monthly newsletter today that it's hard to articulate in words that sense of joy that I think we all had, seeing the smiling faces, and we made a difference for our community last Thursday night. And I can't say thank you enough to all of you. It takes a village, and it got done. And thank you to staff, thank you to the managers and stuff for making that happen. That was significant for our community. Real quick, we're talking a couple of things around development. Lincoln Lawns, or Lincoln Golf Course, I should say, right now we're slated for a January 27th Planning Commission presentation. If we cannot do a in-person, that is going to get punted down the road. I think we can all agree, without taking a vote, our residents' voices need to be heard on this specific project and development. A Zoom meeting is not going to do its justice, just given the significance of the size of the development and what it's going to mean to the traffic impact in the area and so forth. So if I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, we're in a better spot. County-wise, our numbers the last going on almost 2 weeks now have started to level off. We've not, according to the health department, we've not seen the Thanksgiving spike, thank goodness, that we were all expecting. So that's a good thing. So that being said, I want to be adamant about that on all of our behalfs, because we've all heard in some way, shape, or form, we've heard some resident feedback about that development. We will not have a planning commission meeting Zoom on that development until we can do it. We got to be able to do it live, just plain and simple. Couple quick thank yous. My message today in the newsletter was gratitude. So immediate ones, Commissioner Gilbert, thank you for taking on the rapid piece, especially with definitely with the CEO search, and sounds like we've got this zoned in. And also, to use the word constant, I'll use the word relentless. It's been a lot of drive because we have to improve service to that Northwest corridor. There's an interesting, a conundrum that you have at the Rapid, because the revenues and the ridership is way down in a lot of areas, but we're asking for a lot of increased service in our city. But that's something that's long overdue. So I just think as we continue to fight for that, and appreciate the leadership there. Commissioner Heisinga, just Standale's looking better and better. I'd still love to see some Christmas lights up there. That will happen next year. That I know is going to happen next year, but we've come a long ways. I love the projects that community engagement has coming out, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge there's an energy level with that committee, which quite frankly, a little over a year ago didn't exist. So it's kind of neat to see what all you guys are doing, all the gang is doing there with that. So, and then Commissioner Glanville, I want to give a shout out because we had an interesting conversation about mask one night, and we were talking about the unfortunate politicization of the mask, and we were just talking about the city not getting behind it, not helping advocate for it. And I think there's this fine line that we have as a municipal government of not trying to force something down residents' throats, but yet educating them to what we need to, consistent with the health department and the CDC. So there's consistent, there'll be a new mask design come out tomorrow via social media. And Nicole continues to work on her rhyming with one. She had one today. We're going back and forth. Does the language, how does it sound? So if you've got any great ideas for messaging, she's taking the graphic design and helping promote that. And a shout out to staff too, because when you come in City Hall here, even Daryl, Frank, and I in the same hallway right now, everybody's masked up just because it's the right thing to do right now. It's not a political statement. It's the right thing to do because the health department is reinforcing that with us based on facts, as is the CDC. So I'll stand by that statement. So thank you for that was a really good discussion around that. Lastly, I have Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And my message today was in the city newsletter was not around anything with city developments or news or new businesses, and you can't help but drive through the city and see all of the things taking place, and with every action there's a counteraction that takes place, and with development there's going to there's more traffic sometimes, and there's maybe not the rural area that maybe we once had, but we have a lot of great things going on in the city, and it's been a tough year. It's been a contentious year. And I hope that all of us, as wishing all of you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all of that, that the stockings have some healing in them, have some gratitude, and really have some good time with our family and friends in the small groups that we're able to have. This is the time of year that we need each other in a big way. So thank you all. Appreciate it. One last time for the good of the order, anything there from the group?
Just to confirm, our next meeting will be January 11, correct?
Yes. So everybody, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. I'll entertain it. Yes, Commissioner Rapp.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Somebody give me one quick so we're official.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Chase, Commissioner Rapp. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're done. Jason Rotman, you rock. Thank you for your help again tonight.
Thanks.
Merry
No problem.
Christmas.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Good stuff. See y'all.
Later.